Hi, my name's Glenn Hasselman. I'm just making this video for the users of free accounting software to show you guys how to process your payroll for the JobKeeper extension in free accounting software. So on this page on the ATO website, and I'll put a link to this page on the video page on my website. There is a lot of information about the JobKeeper extension. So it's not my intention to provide accounting and taxation advice in these videos, but I'll just have to cover some of it for background and context. So please review this information and make your own decisions or contact your accountant. If I am your accountant, I am a tax agent, and if you're one of my clients, then by all means contact me. Now, just want to point out a few things, so I'll skip ahead a bit here. JobKeeper Extension 1 runs from 28th September to 3rd of January. So JobKeeper goes on a fortnight by fortnight basis. You do get paid at the end of the month, but the JobKeeper periods are fortnights. So that sort of roughly aligns with the December quarter. The test period is September 2020, and it's generally compared against the September 29. It says relative to the comparable period, which is generally the corresponding quarter in 2019. So obviously there's some exception to the rules, not always September 2019. One thing to point out here is that if you did satisfy that test for decline in turnover between September 2019 or perhaps the comparable period and September 2020, you would have satisfied the original decline in turnover test and already be entitled to JobKeeper. But there is, potentially situations where people are becoming entitled to JobKeeper now. And if you are just enrolling, then please watch the original video I did on JobKeeper, because I won't be covering all of that information again here. Extension 2 goes from 4th of January to 28 March, so roughly the March quarter, but again aligned to the fortnights. And the test period being December 2020 against the corresponding period in 2019, generally, they say. So they're the two periods it's being extended for, and you might be eligible for one of those and not the other, and so on. Anyway, on that, if you are now not eligible, so if you're not eligible for the JobKeeper extension, you can simply do nothing, because you put in your declaration for September. So let's say you were entitled to JobKeeper, put in your declaration for September, and then you get reimbursed for that. You won't put a declaration for October because you're not entitled to it. You won't be paying any employees any JobKeeper top-up, and you wouldn't be, what I'm going to demonstrate in this video, is setting up employees into specific tiers. And so the ATO will know that you're not entitled to JobKeeper for October, and so you don't have to specifically do anything to deregister from it or remove employees from it. If you remember, there was a finish fortnight flag that you could put through if an employee became not entitled to it, and you don't need to do that. You're going to drop off automatically by just doing nothing. Okay, now there are two tiers now. Okay, so employees need to be assigned to a tier, and the tier 1 rate applies to eligible employees who worked for 80 hours or more, and it says the 4 weeks of pay periods before either 1st of March or 1st of July. So there's 2 potential test periods, and you can choose the one that's more favorable to you. So this phrase, the 4 weeks of pay periods, that I would interpret as being, you take the pay period that ends before either one of those 2 dates, and that's the 4 weeks leading up to the end of that pay period. Okay, and there is something for eligible business participants there as well. I'm going to be focusing on employees because they're the ones that you're going to process through single touch payroll. And the tier 2 rate applies to the other ones. Okay. Now, one thing I want to point out on this is that the tier that the employee is in is fixed based on something that happened in the past. So you determine what tier they're in before this period starts, meaning once you put them in a tier, they don't change between different tiers. There is a way to correct the tier if you've made a mistake, and I'll put some info on the web page about that, but there is no real reason to switch between tiers, if you've made the correct determination in the beginning. So what we're going to do in free accounting software now is go and set up the tiers so that we can put an employee into a specific tier. Okay, so I've got this demo JobKeeper organization already set up from previously. We need to set up a tax code and an account. So in the tax codes, previously we set up, this tax code JobKeeper from fortnight 01. That's just sort of a flag to go to the ATO to let them know that the employee was entitled from fortnight 01. And this other one was the JobKeeper top up, and that was where an allowance where the amount would be paid against it, and you'd probably be quite familiar with those by now if you've been processing JobKeeper. We want to set up something that's actually quite similar to this JobKeeper from fortnight 01. So anyway, we go and click New Tax Code and call it JobKeeper. Let's say I'm doing a tier 1. Okay, so tier 2 I won't demonstrate it, but it's pretty much exactly the same, but you're going to use a 2 instead of a 1. Now the code for this is JK tier 1. Okay, so in capitals, capital JK TIER 1, and you got to try to make sure you spell that exactly correctly to make sure you get reimbursed by the ATO or paid by the ATO in a timely fashion. So other things, active true, classification, reference, liability, I don't think that really matters. FAS classification, I'll just put not applicable. We're not actually going to put any dollar value against this tax code, so it's just being sent as a flag to the ATO. Payment summary type. Payment summary is the old name. It's now called the single touch payroll income statement. And I've put individual non-business, and there is a individual non-business employment allowances other. There's this other taxable, which it doesn't really matter which one you pick because it's just going to get a 0 on it. So I'm just going to pick the first one, and this one is for the tax component, which is not applicable. Okay, and save. Then go back to the menu and click on accounts and create a new account. In fact, I had already created the account here, so I'll just modify this one because I'd already created it. So it's called JobKeeper Tier 1. Expense active is true, and what you need to do is link that JobKeeper Tier 1 tax code. Payment deduction type is earnings. Okay, so that is so that it can be displayed in or available for selection in that correct part of the payslip entry. So that's important to get that. Otherwise, you'll be wondering why you cannot select it. Okay, having set that up, we can now go and process the payslip. Now, I'd only done a few demo pays for the in fact in the prior financial year here. We'd probably have more pays that go all the way up to the end of September, but anyway, so this payroll, let's say we're doing it kind of next week when you're doing your first pay in October, although you can put the JobKeeper tier flag on at any time, so you can put them on now on this week's pay, even though we haven't actually yet got to the 20 or the 28th for the new JobKeeper extension. But in any case, I'll just demo this like we're doing next week's payroll. So let's say it's a weekly pay, and it runs from the Monday through to the Sunday, and payday is the Tuesday. So the payment date would be the 29th of June, which is in the extension period, so from the 28th of September onwards. So although the pay period actually is in September, this goes by payday. So from date 21 to the 27th, and I'm going to call it week ending 27th September. Okay, now we go to the transactions and new payslip, and the employee was just called the employee, and let's say we're paying some actual normal time and they work 10 hours. Now we need to add this flag, but before we do, let me just scroll down and look at this pay event info section. So there's all just the normal stuff like the address and whatever. Year to date amount is the gross pay 200, and I haven't actually processed any pays for them this financial year yet, which would be incorrect. You would have to have had some pays because you'd be getting JobKeeper, so you'd have some totals in there. Okay, one thing to note is that you probably would have, or you'd remember we had the JobKeeper start fortnight on there year to date, and because we've crossed into the new financial year, that is not being displayed, and that's fine. So when we crossed, because we processed them in March or up to June, and then when we flicked over to the new financial year, because these are year-to-date totals, that allowance no longer displays. If you've added it back, it's not going to cause any problem. Anyway, let's add the tier code allowance. So select JobKeeper Tier 1 and just put a 0 in there. When we scroll down to the year-to-date amounts, we'll see that we've got an allowance type other, and the description is JK-TIER1. Okay, and the amount is 0. So this section here is the information that goes to the ATO under the pay event info, and they are getting this code in the exact capitals and spelling to make sure they can see that this employee is in Tier 1. Okay, then we can save that. Now I'll just do the next week as well, being the second week in the JobKeeper fortnight. So new batch. Now this one would be paid on the 6th of October, and the pay period will run from the 28th of September through to the 4th, and we'll call it week ending. Okay, new payslip. Select the employee. Say they work normal time and they do another 10 hours. So just scroll down to the pay event info section. You can see the JK-Tier 1 is being displayed again, and that will just carry through for the whole year to date. You don't need to re-add it for each pay.